Need to Succeed, the podcast. This will help you get everything that you want. This will powerlift your life, give you unshakable confidence to achieve your biggest goals and wildest dreams. It's going to help you to create a life that you love and build relationships that you adore. Why am I so confident that I can give you that? This is my job. I'm a mindset and confidence coach. This is what I do for a living. I've never given these life hacks away on a podcast for free before, but that's about to change right now. So put your seatbelts on and buckle up and get ready to enjoy the ride of your lifetime. People call me the mother of motivation, the confidence queen, the person that you go to for positivity. This podcast will motivate and empower you to run at your life, and the fastest way you can do that is to use these techniques, the same ones that I've used in my own life and the ones that I use and encourage for my clients. The only question that is left to ask you is, are you ready? Let's do this.
Welcome to Everything You Need to Succeed, the podcast. This is episode 9, and I have my wingman with me, Mr. Chris Gregg.
Super excited today because 9 is one of my favourite numbers, comes right the way between 8 and 10, and nuzzled in the kind of the top half of the top 10.
I like the way you've thought about that, actually. 9, a good 9, a good
It's the magic
9.
number. If you triple 3 times, you get 9. What's not to like? 9 is good time.
Yeah, you sound like a bingo caller now.
I did that once. I was the worst bingo caller. I was making up my own rhymes for every number.
Oh, no, they would have hated that because my mum used to love bingo and I used to go with her from age 10, and we used to have these little dabbers, and whenever there was a new person that would read the numbers and not say, you know, what legs 11 and they said something else, they'd be like, oh, or they'd say, you know, they've got like, what are the other ones? When they said 6 and 9, 69, everyone went, ooh.
It's of its time, bingo, isn't it?
It is of its time, but I like bingo. It does remind me of my mum because it was a game that she loved playing. She'd get 6 books, she'd get a little dabber, she'd have a special thing, she'd be able to go dab, 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 dab.
That's hardcore when you're doing multiple books at the same time.
Multiple, and she was like a pro, and all of her little friends as well, they all were the same. They're like, boop, 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 boop. I got to start with one book.
But I think it takes all the fun out when you've put pressure on yourself and you're just there focused on dabbing these books all night. You never win anything.
Oh, yes, you do. I've won so many times. And once my mum won in Milton Keynes, you know the Point? So if you're listening to the podcast and you're not from anywhere where we are, there's a place called the Point in Milton Keynes, which is like a big red building up the city centre.
Sort of triangular. It's not there anymore, the bingo hall. It's a charity shop now.
I know, it's so sad. But that was where we used to play gala bingo all the time. And once my mum won the link up. So, you know, they link
the
all
National Bingo Prize.
the link up. I think she won a couple of thousand once.
Wow.
But she had been playing bingo for like probably 3 decades.
But worth it for that one moment of glory.
It was. And I remember she came home and we were just like, oh my gosh. And they give you cash.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
What did you do with the money? Did it change your life a little bit?
I don't even remember, but I just remember the joy on her face when she was like, I won! We were like, yes, amazing.
So what she did basically was she changed a little thing and changed her life completely by playing bingo.
Yeah, well, maybe we won't go that far, but yeah, bingo's definitely a topic. But today, the topic is change your thinking, change your life. And whenever I think about change your thinking, change your life, if you're into personal development, the quote that will come to your mind will be the Wayne Dyer quote that says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you
look different or something. When you look at things a different way, everything's behind you.
Yeah, that's not his quote, but thanks, Chris, for kind of like messing that whole quote up. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And
when you look at change, you change what you're looking at. When you look at your change, you think, where's that all gone?
Only Chris would find a joke from that, but in all fairness,
it's a good quote. I like the quote.
It is a good quote because it makes you think about things, and this is what this is all about, this episode. Because when your thoughts can make you or break you, and most people are thinking about things that they don't want and wonder why it just shows up. So this chapter is all about helping you to change your thinking so you can actually change your life, and it is a decision that you have to make. So let's get started.
I mean, we've already agreed that we want to change our lives because by the end of this podcast, your life will change. So be warned.
Yes, it will change. And in the book, Powerlift Your Career, I actually go into real deep granular information.
Do you do a deep dive?
It's a deep dive into the mind. So first of all, I want to talk about is how, and we talked about this in What to Expect, so I'm waiting for Chris's jokes, but the quality of your thinking is the most important thing that you can do to ensure that your future is a success. This episode is all about helping you to change the way you think so you can change your life. So what I want you to do is imagine that your mind is a garden. And the thoughts that you think are seeds that will one day turn into flowers or weeds.
Okay, so my garden is in my mind.
Yeah, and every thought that you have is a seed that plants into your mind.
Can I choose the seed?
You can. You can choose whether it's going to be a positive seed, meaning a seed that's going to grow into a flower, or you can choose a seed that will probably turn into a weed. Which one do you want to choose?
See, I quite like weeds.
Who likes weeds?
No, I do. Daisies are nice. Technically a weed. Buttercups.
Are they
nice.
weeds?
Yeah.
Oh.
Anything that grows in your lawn that you don't want there
Is a weed.
is a weed. Or, I don't know what you call them. The ones that you blow.
Oh, I love those.
Dandelions.
Dandelions.
Yes.
I remember it used to always be if you get one, you make a wish when you blow.
And you normally end up with a burdock. I don't know what a burdock is, but it always comes with a dandelion.
A dandelion and burdock. That's a drink, isn't it? Like a purple
Yeah, but what
drink.
is a burdock? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows what that is, but it just takes me back to the 80s massively. And I know last episode we were very much talking about the 80s, or the one before last.
Yeah, I know. I saw the clip you did of my A-team performance.
I loved it. I'm still in awe. I'm still in awe by your A-team performance. But let's talk about the brain. So your brain is fascinating. It's more sophisticated than any supercomputer that man has ever built. Inside your skull, you have something that has enough power to light up an entire city. Scientists are still in the very early stages of uncovering everything that the brain can do.
I don't think we should encourage people to do that sort of Frankenstein engineering. Northampton is powered by a human brain that we've connected to 10 gigawatts of power. I think there's ethical issues raised by that experiment.
Yes, and I hear what you're saying, but in terms of us understanding how powerful our actual brain is, I think it's great because there was a study that was done by Napoleon Hill and Dr. Alexandra Graham Bell and Dr. Elmer R. Gates. Now, this was an experiment that concluded that every human brain is a broadcasting and receiving station for the vibration of thought. So what scientists know for sure is that the average person leaves 90% of their potential unfulfilled.
I have heard that actually, if we could, there was a film about this, that if we could use that extra 90% of our brains, we'd be invincible.
Absolutely. Well, even someone like Einstein, he was reported to only use 15% of his brain capability.
So he was getting an extra 5%, and look what he did with that. Imagine if he tapped into the other 85.
Yeah, or imagine if we just tapped into 1% more. Like, what would that mean for us?
I think all the lights would dim in Northampton. There'd be a drain on the national grid.
Yes, it would. But the thing that I find so exciting is knowing that within all of us, we have so much potential, but we just do rudimental things, you know, get up, brush our teeth, scroll through Instagram. But when we actually put our mind to something, if we can just stretch an extra 1% of our brain capability, imagine who we could become, imagine what we could achieve. I think it's really exciting. I can see you looking like you're about to laugh.
I'm just going to say you should still brush your teeth, though.
Yeah, I think
that's disgusting.
You should still brush your teeth, but what I'm saying is we use so much effort doing.
But you still got to get out of bed in the morning.
That shouldn't take much effort either. And the thing is, what I learned is that our brains have over 1 billion cells, each of which is connected as many as 20,000 neurons or cells. So this means that the total number of ideas and thoughts that we can think is greater than the number 1, followed by 15 million zeros, greater than all the molecules in the universe. So if we think about how many
That's
thoughts
also
we have,
the same number of things that my wife can complain about that I've done wrong.
I hope she's listening, because when you get home, you're going to get in trouble.
Too busy telling me to do the washing up to be listening to the podcast.
Oh my gosh, Chris, what a thing to say.
I know. Well, maybe she'll listen to it one day.
I'm going to send her the podcast and say to her, you should listen to this. The thing is, though, we spend a lot of our time complaining and moaning and stressing out over things that we have no control over, when actually, if we were to get our brains focused and we start performing at our full capacity, imagine the kind of ideas that we will have. Like children, they've got these big imaginations and they're thinking about all these different ideas, and adults, we get to a point where we just use very little of our potential just to do the day-to-day things.
My little boy has spent this week walking around telling everybody that a dinosaur ate his golf ball, which I think is the most random thing any child has ever said. But we went to play crazy golf at this dinosaur adventure golf place, which is very cool. And the ball went in the hole at the end, and the man wouldn't give it back. And he said, "No, dinosaur ate it, mate. Dinosaur ate it." And then he was really upset. He was like, "Dinosaur ate my golf ball."
Oh, bless him. Why didn't the man give him the golf ball back?
Because it's crazy golf. You don't get to keep the golf ball, do you?
Oh, okay. So you're letting your son walk around believing that the dinosaur ate the golf ball?
Well, what other explanation is there? He hasn't got his golf ball anymore. He loved it. He was really good at the golf.
Was he? There
but
we go.
Very
Young
upset
Tiger
that he
Woods.
lost the ball.
Bless him.
But that's his untapped potential.
That is his untapped, because he's got an imagination and he's very good at communicating as well. And I think, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this one is because when we look up everything that we've talked about having clarity about what it is that we want. We have made sure that we believe in ourselves. We've built our confidence and self-esteem. We've worked on our personality. We've got our roadmap. We've made sure that we're not consuming too much of the negativity. And we have surrounded ourselves with people that are going to cheer for us. We've decided to be known for being the best. And now, here we are, chapter 9.
Ready to realise the full potential, because there's nothing in the way now. We've removed all of those obstacles.
Everything is out of the way. The only thing that is left that can get in the way is you. You are the only person who is going to stop you from reaching your biggest goals. You are.
Wow, this is brilliant. I'm feeling like anything is possible now.
Anything is possible. And the thing is, you can get the universe to work with you. So when we look at quantum physics theory or mindset, and we actually look at how our brains are vibrating, every thought that we think, we're vibrating out there, and we're going to attract into us more of what we want or more of what we don't want. But we don't have a control over what we attract. It's just whatever the most dominant thought is. So if you've done all this work now, why would you allow yourself to think about things that are going to likely move you in a direction or to a place that you don't want to be? Why won't you guard your mind? Why won't you start thinking positively? Why won't you start speaking the words for success? If you truly believe that the law of attraction worked, and you really believe that in quantum physics theory or mindset, you really trusted, that we are vibrating and we have a magnetic force field around us that attracts in things. When a lot of women, I know, when you're pregnant, you start to notice lots and lots of pregnant people, or you've just bought a new car and you notice loads of people with the same car because you're in tune. It's a bit like if you want to get on the radio, if you want to listen to 96.1 FM and you want to listen to Revolution Radio, if you put 96.2, you're not going to get us. Like, it doesn't matter how badly, if you can't go on to, unless you can, you can't.
No, you probably can't. But it's a technical question, but there is a little bit of sideband that you'd be able to get on 96.2. But if you went to 96.3, no chance. You're in radio air territory there.
That's what I mean. So it's about getting onto the right frequency. It's about finding the right frequency that's in line with what it is that you want. And when you have that and it's strong, you become unstoppable.
It's amazing. And it's about where you choose to steer your life, isn't it? You've got that power. You've got that control. You can get in a car, steer it off a cliff if you want. Why would you?
We're not recommending that, by the way.
No.
But yeah, you can take it wherever you want. And I think one of the biggest things that people say is that they feel like they have no control. They feel like, this is my life, this is how it is, I don't have any control, things always go bad for me, the rich get rich, the poor get poor, money doesn't grow on trees, all of that kind of, and the funny thing is money actually does grow on trees.
Well, because it's made of paper, isn't it? You've got to chop the trees down. Did you see that Jim Carrey film where he had a remote control that would make anything he wanted happen?
No, but what is that film?
It's really good.
Is it?
I can't remember what it's called though. But
does it have Morgan Freeman in it?
No.
Oh, anyway.
That's the one where he's God, isn't it?
Yeah. Is that something different? Okay, carry on.
Anyway, he has a remote control and he he kind of gets obsessed with the fast forward button, and he realizes that you could just fast forward all the boring bits in your life to get to the interesting stuff. And he keeps it, and he fast forwards, and eventually his life's over. And he wonders why everything's gone wrong. It's because he'd lived his whole life on this sort of autopilot where he wasn't actually present, that he was just pressing fast forward on his remote control.
Wow.
And your life is like that. If you don't take any action, you don't positively change anything. Don't turn up. Your life will happen. You'll get through life. Things will happen to you, but you're not driving. You're not deciding where your life goes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it makes me think about the idea that we have two timelines. There are two time lapses in life. You've got your past and you've got your future, but your present is like a fleeting moment that passes by. So we have to decide, do we want to live in the past, or do we want to live, like you said, in the present moment, enjoy the moments that are happening, rather than just keep talking about all the things that have gone wrong. I always say to people, if you think about a Christmas dinner, let's say, and you dish up the plates and you've got all this turkey and cranberry sauce and all this food, and at the end there's normally leftovers. I want you to imagine that you scrape all the leftovers in the bin, and then the next morning you wake up and then you get all the leftovers out of the bin and you tip them onto a fresh plate. That's what a lot of people do. They dig into.
Yeah, they have that kind of
yesterday's
cold
trash.
turkey buffet. It's disgusting.
Yeah, well, it's okay if they've left it out, but I mean, digging into
But why would he
yesterday's
put it in the
trash-
bin, though?
No, you shouldn't. That's what I'm saying.
I was going to say, just don't do that. It sounds disgusting.
Do that. But a lot of people, they dig into yesterday's trash to try and feed themselves for today. And that's bringing up things from the past that's stale. And the more and more you eat the crap from the past, the more unwell you become.
I'm not sure I'm buying into this metaphor. I don't think anybody actually does that, though, do they?
No, they don't. But that's what it's like when people sit down and talk about their past and they say, oh, this happened to me. And I remember 10 years ago that happened. It's like you're digging in the trash from yesterday.
You wouldn't have 10-year-old bins, though, would you? That's still there. This is from Christmas 10 years ago. I've kept the bin bag in the bin bag archive here in the shed. Let's go back and see what we had. Oh, look, there's some bones. There's some cracker jokes here.
But
It's a bit sticky.
The reason why I shared the metaphor is because we can all imagine how gross it is to eat trash. That's what it's like every time you tell your sad, painful, difficult story, and you keep saying the same story over and over again to try to justify why you are where you are. Everyone has a sad story. Everyone has experienced tragedy. Everyone has experienced feeling not good enough. This is part of life. But you can make a decision to change your thinking and stop talking about what happened and start talking about what you want to see in your life. Take control over how you're going to steer your car. And that's an inside job.
Everyone's experienced Brussels sprouts, but we don't want to eat them again on Boxing Day.
No, we don't, except for Marks and Spencer's Brussels sprouts, because they do them with this in this like box with walnuts, and it was the most delicious. I hate Brussels sprouts normally, but then I tried them marinated in walnuts, and they were delicious. I mean, delicious.
And that shows that you should always try something, even though you might think you don't like Brussels sprouts, which you probably don't. Mm-hmm. But once you soak them in walnut juice and
I think
and truffle oil and and kind of remove all flavour of Brussels sprout from them, they don't taste as awful.
Actually, yeah, you make a good point there. As soon as you can remove everything to do with the Brussels sprout, they're actually not bad, because that's what the walnuts and the orange does. It takes away the actual taste. So
that's why people eat snails. But literally, it tastes of garlic bread. I like garlic, so I will eat a snail in France.
Never eaten a snail,
but I don't like the idea of it.
No, I don't like it. When I went to Japan, I ate an elephant's tongue.
Oh, how did the elephant feel about that?
I have no idea how the elephant.
This sounds to me like a snog.
That's disgusting.
You snogged an elephant.
It was when it.
Well, yeah, but the elephant was dead at the time. That's even worse.
The thing is when I started eating it, I had no idea what it was, because when we were in Japan, the food there was so different to what I'm used to. And when we went to this really nice restaurant, and they just put loads of different meats on, and I said, "This one's yummy," and they go, "That's elephant's tongue." I went, "What? Oh my gosh, really?"
I've been eating cow tongue for the last week.
Why?
Unwittingly. True story. My wife does this oleo thing where you get surplus food that the supermarkets are going to throw away. And she got this massive tin, a catering pack of beef tongue. And she was like, why would they throw this away? Why has nobody bought this 10 kilos of tongue? I was like, well, no, don't feed that to me. She made me a bolognese, and she said to me afterwards, did you like your bolognese? Did you? Because I had tongue in it.
Oh.
And I went, oh, you can't feed someone something disgusting and not tell them.
Oh my gosh. I'm just trying to imagine it. Ugh, I feel like
It was quite nice, actually. It was like little bits of beef, basically. It's just meat. But it's knowing that it's the cow's tongue. For some reason, it's better to eat another bit of the cow than its tongue. That I'd rather tuck into its body
I was going to say
or
its
its
balls.
backside. No, she didn't cook that.
It's backside, because that's the rump, isn't it?
Yeah,
The backside.
but still, it's equally disgusting.
Oh yeah, I think like you said, it's about the thought of it. And I think if we bring it back to the conversation around change your thinking, change your life, I think that a lot of people overlook the power of the thoughts that we think. I think that you can, like you said, get into the autopilot, into the constant way of thinking the same thing over and over again, and then wondering why you just keep getting more of the things that you don't want. It's like you're perpetuating it by your thinking. So when you understand the power of your thoughts, which I think they should teach at school, which I go in actually and do teach it to schools, I talk to them about their subconscious mind and their conscious mind, and I talk to them about the power of the thoughts that they think and how every word is going to get stored somewhere in their subconscious mind, and then it's going to then be the thing that drives them like a hard drive. So I think that if we can just learn to change our thinking, we can really change our lives. But it has to start with the thoughts that you think. There's no other quick fix. It's an inside job, like I said.
It's like not actually taking the bins out. It's like leaving the bins to fester in your kitchen. All that negativity.
Toxic.
Just, especially like our bin is full of nappies. And the smell on a warm day of those nappies, honestly, it shouldn't be in the kitchen.
I think that sometimes, though, you can get so used to the smell of dirty
Not nappies, no.
Well, you can get so used to the smell,
Baby nappies,
the stank of it.
Baby nappies are like cinnamon. There's kind of a sweetness to baby poo.
Really?
But once, I mean, Fenn's like 2 now. There's nothing sweet about that.
No. What I was going to say is that sometimes you can experience a smell so long that you don't even realise that it smells anymore. It's a little bit like Northampton, I must admit. I'm going to say it because Chris is like, you cannot say it.
You're going to talk about the beer factory, aren't you?
I hate that smell of the Carlsberg beer factory, to the point where when we moved here, I remember getting up extra early one day. I think I was going to the airport, so it was like 5 a.m, which must be when they released it into the atmosphere. And I was like, ooh, what's that smell? What's that smell? What's that smell? And it just consumed me. And after living here for 3 years, I was like, that smell is so annoying. And I'd say to other people, can you smell that? I'd be like, smell what? Smell what?
The nose blind.
It smells like sick. It smells like someone's just been...
It doesn't smell like sick. It smells like hops and barley and wheat and stuff that
It smells like sick to me. It actually smells like sick, and I hate it. But the reason why I'm so angry...
Do you like drinking beer, though?
No.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I don't like the smell of beer.
It's the same sort of smell.
But it smells like someone's drank loads of beer and then been sick.
That's yeast. That's the yeast you can smell.
Yeah. That's what I can smell. I don't like it. But what I'm saying is that you can get used to something so much that you don't even notice. And that happens with our thoughts. You can get used to like saying, oh, isn't it awful? Isn't it a bad day? Oh, it's too hot. Oh, it's too cold. Oh, just moaning, just like being on this constant roller coaster of moaning. And you don't even realise, because it's just your natural way of operating. So you need someone like me to come up to you and say, hey, monitor your thoughts. Monitor.
But you need to recognise that negativity, don't you? So people don't notice because they're used to it.
They don't. And when you say, I always say, you're either a radiator or a drain. And sometimes people are like, yeah. But the people are like, yeah. I'm like, you're the drain. You are. Like, a lot of the time when I do my talks, I go, can you all just take a minute just to ask yourself, am I the problem?
Nobody thinks they're the problem, though, do they?
They don't.
We can't all be radiators.
We can't all be radiator, but when you mention it in a room, everyone's like, well, I'm clearly the radiator. I'm not the drain. And then you go, hold on a minute. Let's get some of your close friends and family on the panel and let's see what they say. And then people go, oh my gosh. Because the thing is, in all honesty, not all the time do we know. We like you said, we just don't. We're not aware of the fact that we actually might be the drain. We might be the negative person. Even though you talk about negativity, people might actually. I've witnessed it with people who are coaches, people who are, you know, talking about positivity, and I'm like, but all you ever do is moan. So how can you possibly be this person? And they don't realize. They're like, oh gosh, yeah.
They need to rethink their career. If they're a positivity coach and they're a massively negative person.
Always moaning like, oh, isn't it awful? But the thing is about this episode, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. You can make a decision after you finish listening to this to from now on never utter one negative, deprecating.
You can't never be negative though, because what about when things happen that are bad? You want to
But that's not being
complain
negative.
about it, surely.
No, but that's different. I think it's okay to complain about it, but not on the irrational level. You know, like, for instance, the other day I got wet. Like, I got drowned. I was a drowned rat. I came in, I was wet, I was shivering. Now, I was like, oh, you know, I wish I would have brought an umbrella. Yeah? And I was like, oh, you know, it's very wet and rainy and cold. You know, is that me complaining or is that me just stating the obvious? But if I said, the rain, it's always on me. Oh, you know, my life's so difficult. If it's going to rain, it's always going to be on a day when my hair, like, and you just start making it all about you. Like, the heavens opened and said, if he's walking through the high street right now, let the rain fall on her head. Like, I think that's a different level of
But that's exactly what happened, though. It was sunny for the rest of the day. And the moment he steps out the car, it was like there's a cloud above your head. It should
And a negative person would really say, that's because I'm bad luck. But someone who's positive would say, these things happen. It wasn't comfortable. It's not something I'd want to happen. But hey-ho, move on, make it work, you know?
But you don't have to be all like, oh, everything happens for a reason. I've learned something. I've grown from this experience. No, it sucked. You got wet. It was bad. But it's not going to change.
What I learned from it is I'm going to bring a brolly now with me.
Yeah. And if it's windy, though, they're rubbish.
Yeah, they are. But I think I had a hat on, didn't I? No, I didn't. That day I didn't have a hat.
There you go. Always wear a hat.
Always wear a hat.
Is that a song?
It's always look on the bright side of life. Yeah,
it's a lot more syllables than always wear a hat.
I know, that's what
it
I was
doesn't
like.
really work.
I had to go, ha, always. But that's what came to my mind. I was thinking, I've just got to always wear a hat. I'm wearing a hat today, so that would protect me from the rain, definitely. But one of the things I wanted to
It wouldn't protect your hair. It's basically going to keep your feet dry because it sticks out at the front. But the sides,
yeah, they'll
you're going to
still
get wet.
I've just
and
had my hair done.
There's sideways rain from the wind.
Yeah, that's not very attractive, but we can get on with it. But one of my favourite quotes I'd love to share with you, Chris, is by Napoleon Hill. In his book Think and Grow Rich, which I think is one of the best books, he says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve. Don't you like that quote?
I love that. We conceived 2 children and they have been achieved.
There you go. I like that. And I think that's a good way of looking at things. And also there's another quote by Einstein which says, everything is energy and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. That is not philosophy. This is physics.
Wow. Einstein was pretty clever, wasn't he?
Very, very smart man. Very, very smart. And you know, Einstein actually
Terrible hair, though.
Yeah, he's got... we won't talk about his appearance because we'll talk about his beautiful brain. But as a child...
but his hair was all over the place,
He didn't have time to do his hair. He wasn't interested in his hair. But as a child...
But he wouldn't care. If he got it caught in the rain, Einstein would be like, I cannot. I am a physicist. I am a genius. I don't care about my hair.
Yeah, that sounds like how he would have spoken, I imagine.
He was German, wasn't he?
I think so, yeah. And the thing is, though, with Einstein, his parents were called into the teacher's office on several occasions because the teachers thought he was stupid. They actually thought he was stupid. He was actually asked to leave the school where he was studying because they said he's just not smart enough. How ridiculous is that? It's just because his brain works so differently. So his parents had to find him another school, send him to a school where he could be more supported. But in those days, they would have said that Einstein was, a special needs child, which just says it all, really, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, he clearly wasn't, though.
Well, I think he had special needs in the sense that do you know what? I've been watching Grey's Anatomy recently. Love Grey's Anatomy. And Meredith Grey, who is like the main protagonist in it, her daughter is called Zola. And she has been struggling lately with panic attacks. And they didn't know why. Tell you a little bit of the background story. So Meredith's mum, who's called Ellis Grey, who was like a genius doctor, died of Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's carries down. So Zola was knowing her grandmother died of Alzheimer's, was knowing that then her mum would, and that her aunts would, because Zola was adopted, so she doesn't have the gene. So this like 12-year-old girl was having these thoughts of, one time in my life, everyone around me will be gone from Alzheimer's because she's adopted and she doesn't have the gene. And she was doing a recital or some kind of thing at school, and she had a panic attack. So anyway, they were looking into what's causing the panic attack, because they took her out of school and let her go to the hospital where they worked. And in the hospital where they worked, there was this special room where they put her in just to be quiet, but there was all these really difficult puzzles, like brain puzzles for these brainiacs, and she was doing them all really quick. And they were like, wow. And they realized she was diagnosed as a genius. And the reason she was having panic attacks and overwhelmed and disconnected at school was because she thinks on a much different level to her peers, which then created the disconnect, which then created the worry and the fear. She worried about so many things because she was thinking bigger than her peers.
Because her brain was getting overloaded with all the information that was coming in.
Yeah, and she was processing it and worrying about things that probably other 12-year-olds would never consider. And now they've moved her, if you like, you could tell I love Grey's Anatomy. So now they're moving her to another state, and they're all moving so she can go to a school for special gifted children.
Is that the whole box set we've just caught up on?
That's just season 19, episode like 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a packed episode though.
Really packed. The writing is incredible, and that brings me to this part. So I'm a storyteller. I love writing stories. My company, Mind Workout Media, we write the stories of the entrepreneurs so they can give their message out. I love storytelling, and I love the writer who wrote Grey's Anatomy, Shonda Rhimes. I'm like a massive fan, got a huge girl crush on her. She is just a brain. Anyway, but with the work that I do as a speaker, I always have to think about, and this is why it's really important that you change your thinking. People will say to me, I could never get up and speak. I could never get up and be, we know you were up in front of 3,000, or how many people were you in front of on the weekend?
Yeah, it was about 4,000. So where was I? Newcastle on Friday night, which was good fun. But yeah, it's a different way of thinking when you've got a big crowd in front of you, and some people really
freak out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they freak out. But this is one of the things that how I've changed my thinking is, if I'm going to be speaking at an event, the first thing I do is I get to understand the psychology of the people in the audience. I want to know what their pain is, what their hopes are, what their dreams are, what life is like for them. So I do a lot of background research first, so that when I get up to speak to them, I don't have nerves, because all I'm here is to serve, and I know who I'm talking to.
You could also say you were psychic with all that background research. You could be like, I'm hearing John over there.
Well, I could pretend that, but the thing is, what it does give me is it gives me the confidence, because I know that whatever I'm going to be talking about is going to resonate with my audience. And most people, the reason why they're scared to speak is they're worried if people will resonate, or if they'll go down like a lead balloon. Where when you change your thinking around what scares you, you change your thinking around your belief systems, and you really take a step back from some of the constant thoughts that you've had, or maybe your beliefs.
I think a lot of it is fear of things happening that probably won't happen, but the fear of them happening is going to cause them to happen.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're scared of being on stage and not being able to think of anything to say, which is not going to happen to most people because they're quite capable of talking. But the fact that you're scared like that makes it a lot more likely that might happen.
Yeah, it creates the very thing that you don't want. That's what happens. But we can flip it as well. If you visualize yourself performing amazing and everyone really engaging and loving it, and you play that over and over and over again in your mind, what happens is like that quote, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve. Also, our minds, we don't know what's real or imagined. So if you're visualizing and imagining all the time things happening how you want it to happen, when the event actually takes place, you're working with the universe, you're working with the law of attraction, you're working to bring everything to make that event like the one that's in your mind. But if you keep imagining it going wrong, or you tripping up a step or losing your mind, when it happens, you're like, well, no surprise there. Well, that's because you put it out there. You actually made that come true, the very thing you didn't want. So you have to focus on what you want, not what you don't want.
But the things that can go wrong do go wrong. And I've fallen off the back of the stage once because the stage was ridiculously small. And last time I was presenting an awards ceremony, my entrance, I had to come out of this cupboard because it was the only door by the stage. And as I opened the cupboard door for my big entrance, there were a few chairs behind me that sort of fell over, and it was pretty clear that I just climbed out of the cupboard in this hotel. But you style it out, don't you?
Yeah, it's how you deal with it. And I think, overall, when it comes to confidence is having the ability to believe that you can cope with whatever life throws at you. So if you already say, no matter what happens, no matter how bad it gets, or whatever I do, I will be okay, I will make sure I'm okay, then why are you smiling at me?
I'm just thinking about when I fell out of the cupboard. But sorry.
But you were okay.
I'm fine.
You were able to deal with it. You were able to adapt. But imagine if you said, I don't know what would happen if things went wrong. I don't know what would happen. I don't know what I'd do. Then if it went wrong, you could quite easily just lay on the floor and cry. Be like, this is
That would have been brilliant, though. If my big entrance, I just fallen over getting out the cupboard and then just laid on, like my little boy does. Yeah. He'll just lie on the floor and just literally bang his fists on the floor and have a full-on meltdown. And
that would be horrendous, and that would be hideous, and you will be never hired again.
They think it was like the best comedy routine ever.
Hopefully they would think that you were joking. But I think once you get to the point where you really are willing to visualize and imagine how you want your life to turn out, and you live in that moment, when things do go wrong or things don't happen, instead of you going, oh no, you go, well, okay, let's move on. That's you've got that kind of bounce back, that resilience. Everyone wants you to. Recently, every single company I've ever spoken for this year has asked me to talk about resilience, about bouncing back, and about keep going, and how do you stay consistent, and all of these kind of ideas of how do you get somebody to not give up and keep going and overcome adversity. And my answer is always, if you've got a vision and you've got a goal and you know what you're going for, you won't let anything get in the way. You might trip over, you might fall down a ditch, you might get diverted, but you'll always get back on track if you're thinking about the finish line. You're keeping your eye on the prize. But as soon as you start thinking about, I'm never going to make it, it's never going to work, then when things happen, you go, see, told ya, see? And you keep proving yourself right. But what you want to do is you want to prove yourself right so that your life becomes the masterpiece, the vision, the movie that you play in your mind. So that's what you have to do. You have to live. And people say, oh, don't be a dreamer. Absolutely be a dreamer. It's important to dream, dream big dreams and be able to hold it in your mind, and then let it go out of your mind and then try and put it out there in the reality. So it's about doing mental rehearsal. So I talk about athletes, and, I talk about physical and mental attributes that we can have. So if we look at Olympic runners, I read this study where they connected Olympic runners up to this biofeedback machine where Did
they power a whole city?
No, they did not. They had them.
Did they put the brain back in afterwards?
They didn't take the brain out. They laid them down and they put these nodes on their head, and they got them to run the 100-meter race in their head instead of running it physically. And they wanted to see what happened with the brain activity. Actually, sometimes your brain can't tell the difference between something that's real or imagined. So if you do mental rehearsal, which is something that as a dancer we used to do all the time, you'd learn the dance routine. I'd be sitting on the tube on the way home, going through the routine in my head over and over again.
I've always wondered how dancers do that, and I remember all that really complicated choreography.
Yeah, it's through mental rehearsal. It's something that you don't actually get taught as a dancer. It's something that you do. So if you go to a dance class and they teach you a routine, and on the way home you don't want to lose the routine, you just start running the routine in your head. So you see yourself doing all the moves. Now, for me, when I was...
Couldn't you dance up and down the tube?
You could, but what you might see dancers doing is moving their hands. So that means if you see a dancer go... if you're not watching the live stream, then I've got one index finger up.
She's twiddling her finger.
Twiddle it around. That means I'm doing a triple, I'm turning. Or if you see a dancer go like that, that means a kick. So people
So you're kind of dancing with your hands.
Kind of, yeah, and you're making it fit in your head, yeah, like a little hand dance.
Yeah,
but basically,
hand jive.
I wish you could see that. Let's do. So the point I'm making about mental rehearsal is that every time I used to visualize myself doing a triple pirouette, I would visualize myself landing it strong. But some people used to think, oh, I'm going to fall. So if you keep seeing yourself fall, when you actually do it, you're more likely to fall.
So some people in their head, as they're imagining the dance, they're falling over.
Yeah, they're seeing themselves not landing.
Well, no wonder they're falling over.
Exactly, but that's the same thing in life. If you imagine yourself in life not succeeding or not reaching your goals or having to deal with stress, then of course it's going to happen. And that's the point, is that sometimes we're so in our heads and we let the negative thoughts in our mind take over and create our reality. So our job in this one in particular, this isn't much work. You just have to sit back and you have to start creating this mental movie in your mind of exactly how you want your life to be. And if you do it and you create it the way you want it, so you land those pirouettes, you land the things, then in real life, when you go out to the world, you've got more firepower, you've got more energy, and you're more excited. But what most people do is they relive in their mind something that went wrong. So they keep playing the old thing and bringing that onto their mind. But what you have to do is you have to project the life, the results, what you want. And that takes real determination, and it takes a decision to say, I'm not going to let my mind think about what I don't want.
It's about expecting good things to happen, isn't it? So you're not surprised. It's just, obviously I landed that pirouette perfectly because that's what I was expecting to happen.
Yeah, because I've seen it in my mind so many times. And that kind of falls into imposter syndrome, is something that a lot of people talk about. Oh, I have imposter syndrome. I keep hearing people talk about it. And I've worked with quite a few people. And one of the main things I get them to do is to visualize themselves. If they want to get to the top of their industry and they want to become the first ever female CEO of an organization, and they visualize it and they see it and they believe it and they see themselves walking into the office, they see themselves getting the contract and signing it. If you keep seeing it and then it actually happens, you're like, yeah, about time. But if you don't see it and you're like, I will never, and then you get it, then you start thinking, they're going to take it away from me. Someone's going to find out that I'm not meant to be here. They're going to tap me on the shoulder and then they're going to call me out and then they're going to rip it away from me and I'm going to be embarrassed. That's because they've not spent enough time seeing the thing that they want. So for me, I visualize everything. I see myself sitting next to Oprah Winfrey. I see myself, her going, Ify, it's so good to meet you. And I'm like, thank you, it's so good to meet you. I've replayed, you know this, Chris, because I've even shown you the whole acting role play of me and Oprah talking. I've replayed it so many times that when it actually happens, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I'm like, about time. I've seen this in my mind for about 10 years, about time, and that's the difference of actually taking the time to really connect and be intentional about what you want. And then when you get it, you're not going to feel like an imposter. You're going to be thinking, wow, yeah, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, you deserve it.
Yeah, because you deserve it. It's when it comes out of the blue that people start going, I don't think I'm good enough for this. You're like, you are good enough for this. Why do you think that? Well, I've never imagined myself in this position. And I know that a lot of people are going to question me and ask me about what I've done. And what if I say something wrong? And then there's this whole kind of spiral of worry that grabs them, where if you just keep projecting what you want, then what happens is when you are in that position and someone asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, you say, I actually don't know the answer to that, but let me go and find out. It's different. People are like, okay, go and find out. They're not like, you shouldn't be in this role, and that comes down to confidence. It comes down to vision. It comes down to consistency. It comes down to you making a decision to get exactly what you want. And when you get it, please don't throw it away by self-sabotage, because that's what people do. They self-sabotage, and that's what procrastination is. So every time you procrastinate, you're self-sabotaging. You're stopping yourself from getting where you need to be, because in your mind, whether you're a perfectionist, fear of looking silly, all of these different negative worries that you have that then leads to you not doing the thing, or doing it at the very last minute and throwing it in. But if you're like, actually, I know that this is part of my journey. I know the universe is conspiring for me to succeed. I just need to show up and do the best that I can and keep going. And that's it. And if someone calls me out on something, I'll put my hands up and own it and say, what do I need to do? Change your thinking, change your life.
Absolutely. Oh, I feel like this has been a very good episode.
Oh, I can see you. You're looking at me like nodding, going, yeah.
Yeah.
It
Definitely.
is a good one.
How can we top this next week? What's next week?
Next week, how to keep going.
Okay.
How to keep going when you don't feel like it, because like we've been through from start to finish, this is episode 9, change your thinking. You might have changed your thinking, but what about when you actually get knocked down? What about when you lose everything? What about when you're stuck in your car with no petrol and no money in the bank? What about when you lose your job just before Christmas? What about when you find out that someone that you love has got a life-threatening disease? How do you keep going when life hits you in the face?
Someone steals all your clothes.
And makes you run down the street naked, dancing.
How do you keep going?
What do you do? And I think this is going to be the really important one, because I can sit here and talk about dreaming big dreams and building confidence and surrounding yourself with like-minded people. But this is when it really counts. When all the chips are down and you're on the floor crying in the rain, how on earth do you get back up and keep going? We're going to talk about that.
And you go and buy some more chips as well. That's a real shame. It happened to me once. I put too much vinegar on and they're in a paper bag. And literally the whole bag I was left was holding some paper.
Oh no.
And I looked down, there were chips all over the floor.
I could imagine that would have made you really upset.
I was just annoyed and I went and bought some more chips.
Yeah, you go and buy more chips.
And I learned a valuable lesson about vinegar.
Don't put too much on. Thanks for sharing that with us. So.
Always support the bottom of the bag.
Or
That's
don't put
probably
too
my
much.
main takeaway from today's podcast. Support the bottom of the bag.
I like that. So Chris's main takeaway of the podcast is support the bottom of the bag. My main takeaway from this episode is support yourself. Really give yourself a good chance to win. So take control of the words and the thoughts that you think. Give yourself the support that you need so that you can really become all that you're meant to be.
And for me, it's become the chips.
I thought I was going to say something really refined.
No, that is. Support the bag. You are the chips.
You
Protect
are the
yourself.
chips.
Don't let yourself fall on the pavement because you got too much vinegar and sourness inside you.
Oh, I like
See?
that. I like where you're going with that. So if you want to keep your chips, you being the chip, crispy and tasty and enjoyable, don't drown yourself in negative.
Use mayonnaise or ketchup.
And put a bit of salt on.
You've got to season your fries, but it's better to have chips in the bag than chips on the ground.
Yeah, and I like what you said about season the fries. I think everything that happens to you along the way is kind of seasoning you. It's marinating you. You're becoming more of who you're meant to be.
Some of it's the salt, some of it's the pepper.
It's a bit of everything.
Occasionally ketchup.
But if you find a dry, naked chip without any season
On the pavement.
they're pretty boring. They're a commodity. There's nothing special about them. But when you find like a seasoned chip with like truffle oil and a bit of Parma cheese, is it Parma cheese? Cheese, that kind of like grated cheese. Parmesan cheese.
On chips. That's a good call.
And then add a bit of your ketchup and mayo and vinegar. Now you're a fully seasoned individual chip that will stand the test of time.
It will. Thank you. I think we've all taken something away from this. I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too. Thank you for listening.